Donald Trump's cabinet is slowly taking shape. Many people have already been confirmed, but a lot more are coming. And the most interesting ones, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel are on the firing block up there in Washington, D.C. right now. But before we get to these clips, don't forget to like and comment on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
Have you referred to the media as the most powerful enemy of the United States that they have ever seen? Is that right?
Again, you're reading a quote. I take that you're reading an act.
Pac 22324. You said we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens who helped Joe Biden rig the elections. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Is that something you said?
That's a partial statement of what I said.
Steve Bannon's podcast. You also said you would put the entire fake news mafia press corps on your list. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
I don't have that in front of me.
Benny Johnson's podcast, 82123. You have said that the FBI, including today, you said that they remain utterly corrupt. This is an agency with agents who have taken down terrorists, taken down bank robbers, taken down crime. And you wrote that the FBI has become so thoroughly compromised that it will remain a threat to the people unless drastic measures are taken. Do you know that under Chris Wray's leadership, he took over at a very difficult time, we all know that, appointed by President Trump, that during his tenure, the applications to the FBI has in fact tripled? Do you think people would be applying to that agency like in those numbers if they thought it was so corrupt?
The American public's trust in it is at 40%. That's an all-time low.
Did you say that the FBI headquarters should be shut down and reopened as a museum of the deep state?
Mr. Chairman, are we allowed to go an extra time?
Let's see. You get a second round. Before I call on Senator Lee.
Could he just answer the question if he said that the FBI headquarters, where they investigate cybercrime and terrorism, should be shut down and opened as a deep state?
Hey, Mr. Chair.
As a museum. Did he say that the headquarters should be shut down?
Mr. Chair.
I deserve an answer to that question. He is asking to be head of the FBI, and he said that their headquarters should be shut down.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
You got anything you want to say, Mr. Patel, before I go on to Senator Lee?
Simply this. If the best attacks on me are going to be false accusations and grotesque mischaracterizations, the only thing this body is doing is defeating the credibility of the men and women at the FBI. I stood with them here in this country. In every theater of war we have, I was on the ground in service of this nation. And any accusations leveled against me that I would somehow put political bias before the Constitution are grotesquely unfair. And I will have you reminded that I have been endorsed by over 300,000 law enforcement officers to become the next director of the FBI. Let's ask them.
Mr. Chairman, I am quoting his own words from September of 2024. It is his own words. It is not some conspiracy. It is what Mr. Patel actually said himself. Facts matter.
You forget that you had 3 minutes in the next round to say what you just said.
Okay, I'll say them again.
So, of course, this is a standard tactic of the left. Go ahead and take a snippet of a larger quote, a larger conversation, sometimes one that lasts several hours, and say, did you say this? It sounds really bad, out of context and without those surrounding words and phrases, okay? But Kash Patel's like, well, I don't have that in front of me, so I can't remember every single thing I said. And I do kind of wish he would have more of that recall. But then again, he's been on so many podcasts and shows and saying all kinds of things that, yeah, I wouldn't expect him to have that instant recall of every single thing. But I do wish he would have doubled down and maybe clarified a lot of these statements. Like, okay, it sounds like I'm saying this, but this is what my actual idea was, what my actual phrasing is overall, right? This is what I was trying to get across, okay? So I wish he would have done that better. But I loved his fiery ending, right? 300,000 law enforcement endorsements, okay? Individuals out there working in the streets in this country trying to keep American citizens safe. They want Kash Patel as the head of the FBI. And of course, he's been working with intel officials, with the government for years, so he is highly qualified and highly respected, except for, of course, by our friends across the aisle. But let's jump into the next exchange with RFK Jr.
If we want to make America healthy, will you assure the American people that you will fight to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to every single American?
I'm going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other major country does? It's a simple question.
And by the way, Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
and protecting their interests.
Oh, I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money
from workers all over this country. Workers,
you were the
not a nickel from corporate PACs.
You were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200 million. All right, but you have not answered. Last question. You have not answered my question.
Mr. Chairman, we're 3 minutes.
How do we make America healthy if you don't guarantee health care?
We're literally 3 minutes over here now.
Well,
how long does it keep going? At some time, you're just battering the witness, Bernie.
Not battering the witness.
Yes, you are. And you're getting upset at him. You're going at him just like anybody else would.
So there, of course, is RFK Jr. totally exposing Bernie Sanders as the hypocrite he is. Hey, Bernie, you and other senators receive millions of dollars from pharmaceutical companies. And as a matter of fact, you, Bernie Sanders, got the most out of anybody. Well, I was running for president at the time, and I got the most contributions from individual workers. Yeah, but these were pharmaceutical companies. Well, let's change the subject, guys. I don't want to talk about that. All right. So the problem is, yes, there's big money involved in politics, and the biggest, deepest pockets are these pharmaceutical companies, as we've seen over the last several years. So they have a mass amount of influence, and that could be the reason for some of this pushback against RFK Jr. so much. And that's one of the things I like about RFK Jr. He's willing to go there. He's willing to say, hey, there could be some issues with some of these vaccines. There's definitely some issues with our food, right? We want to get in there and investigate and make America healthy again. And for all the people who are like, oh, the science is settled. No, that's not how science works, right? You always have new experiments. You always have new information, and you can always go back and look at things from the past to see if they're actually true, right? And that's what I would love to have about RFK Jr. as someone who's actually a skeptic in there running his own studies. And let's see what we find, because then we might get more information about autism, etc., things like that. Stuff that's been kind of, floated around for years and spoken about under the current of politics, but you can't bring up into the mainstream, right? I would love to see all of that. And even though I don't agree with RFK Jr. on a whole lot of stuff, I do think there's definitely something going on with our health in this country. So by all means, look into it. But let's go ahead and check out Tulsi Gabbard now.
Colonel Gabbard, when Russia was denying us use of chemical weapons, they accused the U.S. of supporting terrorists. This is a line that Putin used frequently during the Syrian civil war as he supported Assad. Syrian officials made similar comments. They did it repeatedly. They did it in public. They did it at the United Nations. In 2016, you gave an interview in which you said, and this is a quote, "The U.S. is providing direct and indirect support to terrorist groups in order to overthrow the Syrian government." And in 2019, on the Democratic presidential debate stage, you said of President Trump, this is a quote, "This current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after al-Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after al-Qaeda, our president is supporting al-Qaeda." So I'm interested to hear, what was your goal in saying these things? And did you consider, before saying them, the motives of Iran and Russia, what their motives might have been before making these claims?
Senator, as someone who enlisted in the military specifically because of al-Qaeda's terrorist attack on 9/11 and committing myself and my life to doing what I could to defeat these terrorists, it was shocking and a betrayal to me and every person who was killed on 9/11, their families and my brothers and sisters in uniform. When, as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, and being willing to, through the CIA's timber sycamore program that has now been made public of working with and arming and equipping al-Qaeda in an effort to overthrow that regime, starting yet another regime change war in the Middle East. DoD train and equip program, again, begun under President Obama, is widely been known, looked at, and studied, that ultimately resulted in over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, all to move forward with their regime change and not acknowledging what was obvious at the time and what has unfortunately borne true, which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak, while these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me.
It shouldn't
is
be.
certainly
and I
not in our
understand, and I appreciate your answer.
So, of course, the big talking point from the left is that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian plant, right? She works for Putin. She loves the Assad regime. I mean, after all, she went over there and met with him like many other government officials and members of Congress, okay? But what's her simple point? Is that, yeah, the government has been basically funding the takeover of another country, okay? Something that should not surprise any of us, something that's well documented in our history, okay? But the problem is they're replacing one dictator for another, a dictator who actually would hate this country and want to, of course, have attacks on this country. We're talking about, of course, the Islamic extremists, okay? So when you replace one bad guy with another bad guy who actually wants to do your country harm, that's not a good swap. And all of this, of course, is done at the taxpayer expense, where we're actually funding our enemies, the people who attacked us on 9/11, right? We're giving them money so they can go ahead and topple another regime. Why in the world do we keep doing this? We fund both sides of every war. It's almost like the military-industrial complex makes a whole bunch of money off of these situations, all right? And Tulsi Gabbard is just bringing it to light to the American people, right? But these are the exchanges we have to have because it really just exposes the left. It exposes the Democrats. They don't really care about any of the Trump's nominees necessarily. They just don't want his agenda to go forward because they want the status quo to keep happening. They want the money flowing into Washington. They want the money flowing into their own pockets so they can live their lavish lifestyles while the rest of America suffers. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there, people, because they're coming after you.